living. Just to start us off, I'd like to thank you again. Great shout out to our sponsors. Without you guys, we would not be able to operate as we do and provide these amazing events that we are hosting today. Just starting off the gold sponsors, I've got Law Offices of Buckner, Robinson, Markovich, Little Diversified Architectural Consulting. We've got Bird Group Construction, United Paving Company, Prime Store Development, Camp Property Services, City of Marietta, Advantage Painting Solutions, and Omnia Pacific Construction for the gold sponsors. And then for our silver sponsors, we have Connect Commercial Real Estate, City of Moreno Valley, ARC and Riot Creative Imaging, and Development Management Group, which is a DMG. And now I can go ahead and hand it off to our MC for the morning, Charlie over at Irish.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We've got 5 panelists on today. We've got our KFC, Lawrence Joseph, is going to be joining us in 1 minute, as he just told me. Want to kind of just get a quick overview of everyone who's going to be on here. We have some of the oldest and best brands in the drive-through business. We've got Dunkin' Donuts, and we've got Sonic, who have been around since the 50s. We've got KFC, Wendy's, and Arby's, who started in the 60s, and our youngest brand here, El Pollo Loco, who started in the 70s. So these are some of the trendsetters. They've come up with the innovations that have led to where we are today in the drive-through world. Combined, these tenants have over 50,000 units across the world in 150 different countries. Very well represented, very senior brands, and are able to, they've brought the drive-through world to where it is today. So I'm going to do a quick have the panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Bonnie Gatine with Inspire Brands, Arby's, and Sonic. And go ahead, Bonnie.
Unmute myself.
There you go.
There you go. I didn't know which way you did it. Hi. So as you just mentioned, we are Inspire Brands. So you'll start hearing that more and more often, all of the brands that are under us. And we have Sonic, Arby's, Dunkin' brands, which Jason's going to go through for you, Buffalo Wild Wings, Rusty Taco, and Jimmy John's. We do silo our real estate efforts. Just so you know, I only handle drive-thrus for them. So I have Sonic and Arby's, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Arizona, and Hawaii. So anything in those areas, if you have a fantastic drive-through, we'll take it. And that is the key, obviously, for a drive-through panel, is that is all we're taking is drive-throughs. We don't consider anything without at this point. Arby's, the thing to remember from a real estate standpoint here is that it does not conflict with any restrictions you have unless they went overreaching, like, McDonald's occasionally has an overreaching, no food. But other than that, we're not burger, we're not chicken. We can be put just about anywhere. So arguably the best protein in fast food, we have everything. If you look at the logo, which you can almost see behind me, but I think I'm blocking it, there's a cow on the bottom and then a pig on top of that, a turkey, a chicken, and then there's a fish being balanced on the nose of the chicken. So anything you could possibly want, you can get at Arby's. It is not just roast beef. From a Sonic perspective, Sonic could not have been set up better for COVID. We're a drive-in. So when everyone else was panicked and suffering, Sonic actually was thriving and sales were up higher than anybody else. So that's been a huge boost for the brand. It is considered a developing market out here in the West, so we would love to get more Sonics anywhere we could. Both of my brands are in the working, blue-collar-ish, Sonic even has families in there because Sonic has sugar and ice all day long, which is, kids, so moms, families, that kind of a crowd is perfect. But that's kind of where we're looking, is it about that, about that income level and very hardworking people who want some value for their dollar, but they want really good food for it too. So they'll come in for a beef and cheddar versus, buying off the dollar menu somewhere else. So from a customer base, that's where we are. Both of them, we like 3/4 of an acre. But again, any fabulous drive-thrus, we will do conversions. So anybody walking away from a drive-thru, and also for Arby's, we can do end cap drive-thru. So it's another opportunity, whether it's new or existing, we can take a 2,400 square foot end cap at the end. So hopefully that gives you some basic information. Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you, Bonnie. We're gonna go to Jason right now. Go ahead, Jason.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you, Charlie and ACRE, and everybody on the panel. I actually used to be Kathy's broker a while ago, so she taught me everything that I know, and so I'm honored for that. But I'm with Inspire Dunkin, and so as if you didn't know, we became part of Inspire recently, and so it was Dunkin and Baskin Robbins that came over, and it's really exciting because we have a lot of things that we're learning, and the creative aspect of this is really exciting, especially with what's to come in the future, maybe different ways we look at sites, different ways we look at, you know, the menu and all these other things. So it's really cool. So with Dunkin, during the COVID experience, obviously our drive-thrus experienced an increase in sales. Due to that, we had, you know, our non-drive-thrus were hit pretty much like everybody else. And then in LA, you know, some of our dining rooms on our drive-thrus didn't open up when we had that chance. So, you know, for several different reasons. But we just opened a store in Horn yesterday. We're on the move. We're looking for locations. The unique thing about Dunkin' and our drive-through is that we have a small concept where we can take 10,000 square feet of land and do 1,000 square foot drive-through. And that's just because of the way that we're set up, our equipment. You know, we're, you know, making different products. We're coffee and we're baked goods. And so with the other folks, you know, on the panel, I know that they take a larger footprint. So if there's anything that doesn't work for them, I would be glad to look at anything that's out there and all opportunities, you know, and I mean, we all work pretty well here. We all know each other. We've known each other for a while. So, and we do some non-drive-throughs, obviously, like in the West LA area, where we're not able to get, you know, to compete with the other folks out there, the chicken guys, the Green Machine, you know, but we might be able to do like a 2-tenant pad or something like that, where there's, you know, 2 tenants on it, and we can do the drive-through there. And as Bonnie said, we do the end cap drive-throughs. So we will get very creative. We will, we're nimble. We can give you quick answers. And, you know, I look forward to being here on the panel and also learning what everyone else is doing. And once again, I'm just grateful to be here. So thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Now, Cheryl, we'll go with you next. Cheryl is also a former ACRE president and one of 3 here on this panel. So,
okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Cheryl Fry. I'm with El Pollo Loco. For people that don't know, I've been here about 14 years. And obviously, I'm sure like all of my colleagues, what 2020 introduced us to was prototype changes, building size changes, focus on drive-throughs. Just like Bonnie said, they aren't even considering anything without a drive-through. Neither are we at this point. And we do have quite a few inline spaces in our portfolio, but those were affected most negatively during the pandemic. And a lot of them are in LA County. So that was another factor that LA just, you know, closed everything down and kept it closed for quite some time. We are in the Western states, primarily with one exception. We've got a franchisee in Louisiana. He's in Lake Charles and Baton Rouge. And I am the director of real estate for Pollo Loco, but also the only real estate news site person in the company. So I look at both company opportunities, and we are in California, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Utah. You may have heard there's a push right now to secure some franchisees in Colorado and New Mexico. That's probably going to button up at the end of the year, and then I'll probably be focusing on getting out to those markets. But I look at every real estate site that comes in, whether it's for a franchisee or for company. And one of the good things that came out of COVID was we did develop a new prototype. It's a 20, you know, our back in when I started, we were about a 3,000 square foot footprint. We went to 2,600, we went to 2,400, and now our prototype is at 2,310 square feet, 2,310. And we look to put a large patio on that, 250 square feet or larger. So we offer, that's our preference, but we can also do a drive-through only that would have another large patio attribute to it. And those are kind of the two prototypes we're looking at. And they even designed our patios to have like a roll-up garage door so that it would become full open air in the event that something like this ever comes, our way again, so that, a lot of the people with outdoor seating were able to continue operating outdoors, even with, social distancing and spacing. But, and we're very aggressive, but we're also very well represented in our existing markets. So a lot of times we're looking at infill. And I just opened a new restaurant on March 31st in Valencia, Santa Clarita off of Copper Hill. And that restaurant is performing very well.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. We're going to go to Kathy next, and then we'll finish up with Lawrence. Before we get to you, Kathy, Jason wanted to make sure he put in the areas that he's covering. We didn't get there. Got to take it off mute.
Okay, sorry. I know. Sorry, Kathy. What the areas that I cover right now are the LA metro area and Orange County and Ventura County, but also cover the Hawaii market. And I also picked up the Midwest, the Missouri, Nebraska, Arkansas area. And so covering a nice kind of east-west territory. So
Great. Thanks. All right, Kathy, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Charlie. I'm happy to be on the panel, and Charlie is on the brokerage, one of the brokerage teams that works for us, and he's fantastic. And Jason, by the way, was a phenomenal broker before he moved on to bigger and better things, came to the dark side of the corporate world. But with Wendy's, the Wendy's company, and we are basically, everybody, I think you all know who Wendy's is, an American but international QSR brand. We have about 6,800 restaurants now. We hope to get to 7,000 restaurants by the end of this year. And the goal for 2025 is to get to 8,000 restaurants. So we are on quite the trajectory for growth, right? So I'm currently, I started with Wendy's in May of 2000, believe it or not. It really is a wonderful company with great values, and you'll see in all our new prototypes, we have, quality is our recipe. It's, we kind of still have Dave Thomas's, our founders, his basic qualities, incorporated into the brand. And it's just a good group of people, a great group of franchisees. It's all about doing the right thing and giving something back. And so a wonderful place to be, but exciting with the growth. And we are doing, you're going to hear probably a bit of repetition as far as what different brands are looking at as far as being flexible and trying new ways to get to customers, right? We've got to get creative, more ways to get to customers. And that's for us a variety of things, which include, we're going to be about 30% non-traditional. We consider a freestanding drive-through traditional. Our non-traditional focus right now is about 30%. And that's everything from an end cap drive-through, which we've done very successfully. We do travel centers with the Pilots and the Flying J's. We do C-store gas stations. We do, believe it or not, we're trying out the dark kitchens and the ghost kitchens. So we've had some successes with that. We're doing it really big time internationally, but we are rolling it out nationally. Hospitals, military bases, so very, very flexible. We're even to the point, we've looked at some of the Walmarts, going into some of the Walmarts, that's still essentially a test, but everything from taking down the bigger format to even like a snack shop type limited menu. We actually just got a Frosty cart approved for the Tampa Zoo. So again, many different ways to get, point of contact to the customer to get our product out there. So it's pretty exciting. one of the things that was really interesting for us hitting COVID was we're a 50-year plus chain, just about 52 years old now. Well, it took us about 50 years to figure out the breakfast thing. So we tried it and we stopped, we rolled it out, we pulled it back. And we took some of our best franchisees and operators that have been with the system for years and years. And they called them the B team because they were the breakfast team, but they didn't like that. And they changed the name immediately because who wants to be the B team? They changed it to the A team. They came up with the breakfast menu that we have that actually rolled out and launched the first week of March 2020. So our timing was not great in relation to COVID hitting, but at the same time, all the national marketing was in place. It was all ready to roll. So it rolled and we rolled with it. So it actually was a blessing. You know, number one, a blessing for our businesses to be considered essential business during the shutdown. So drive-thrus obviously were up to, traditionally we do 65 to 70% through the drive-thru. Well, now we're doing 90% through the drive-thru. Breakfast was able, last year it did in fact add 7% to our sales, and we're ramping that up to get to, you know, close to 10%. So that was actually ended up being a big boost during COVID. So that, and you know, we have our mobile app with Wendy's. So if you're on it, there's loyalty programs and you get rewards. And so that also, it includes, you know, curbside and contactless ordering and
We're
pickup.
going to discuss all that too. So.
Oh yeah. So, okay. So too much, but anyway, happy to answer more questions as we go along, but excited, you know, it's obviously a fun place for me to be. I'm enjoying it. I'm covering, currently I'm covering all of the state of California, Nevada, Oregon, Alaska, and Hawaii.
Wow. Well, thank you. Lawrence, we'll get to you. Also, Kathy was a former ACRE president as well. So like I said, we've got three of us here. So Lawrence Joseph with KFC. Go ahead, Lawrence. Thanks for joining us.
Charlie. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel today. Really excited to talk about KFC and what we're doing, because we've been on a multi-year journey of really ramping up our development from building just 10 stores in 2016 to 24 stores a year after to 46 to then 69. And of course, taking a little pause during the COVID year. And we had delayed some of our openings and worked with franchisees to really make sure that coming back this year would be especially strong. So we're looking at least 80 new stores across the United States. And for us, KFC, our US division is separate from anything that we're doing international, but certainly KFC Global is seeing a lot of growth as well. I cover the Western United States and also the Central United States as well. So about half of the country. And I'll say that within both the West and the Central, that Southern California in particular has been a huge point of emphasis for us for growth. And we've done a number of deals with Charlie, and we continue to look for a pipeline. We're pretty flexible on asset types. Obviously, freestanding drive-through is always going to be preferred, but one thing is that we're only doing franchise development in California. So even though corporate, we have a presence in Louisville and in Orlando, Florida, everything is with the franchisee in Southern California, and franchisees have different perspectives of what type of assets they're willing to consider. We have one franchisee that we've done some deals with, Charlie, that have opened up in caps, and we have one opening in Baldwin Park, California next month. That's going to be our first new urban design in Southern California. So that's going to be a great example of where we're going with the brand. We also have next generation designs that are rolling out that give us flexibility for more of a traditional restaurant with a dining room down to a drive-through carry-out model only. We also are including a porch in some areas. In-cab drive-throughs are something that we're looking at. Kathy, you went before me, and there was one I had my eye on by the Las Vegas outlets that I saw turned over pretty quickly. So I know you guys were on that pretty fast, but we're definitely in the game on end caps. So, I mean, we're continuing to look to grow. We think we're doing pretty well as a brand right now, and we're going to keep looking for new deals.
Great. Well, thank you. Hey,
Okay.
so that kind of goes right into our first question. With competition for drive-through locations at an all-time high, what are you guys doing to get your sites to, you know, we won't name the big chicken guy, but he seems to be paying just huge amounts of money for these sites. And so what are you guys doing in regards to new concept ideas, franchise incentives? How are you working with your food delivery outside of the drive-through concept? What are your brands doing to compete for sites and you know, smaller square footages on the land, larger? What are your brands doing? And I'm going to start with Cheryl on that because I know you guys are doing a lot of stuff.
Yes, we put a big attention on our app, our El Pollo Loco app, and we set ourselves up for app-based, so you can order on the app, and especially if you didn't have a drive-through option, or even if you have a drive-through option, we marked parking spaces within our existing restaurants for app-based pickups. And I would say that probably McDonald's led the lead on all of that. They were doing those app-based orders, and where you'd park in a spot and put the number that your spot is in, and then someone would bring your order out to you. Well, we've, you know, replicated that with our product. We also, like I said earlier, have designed a smaller building, and we can go very small. We can go just under, call it 1,700 square feet, which would be a drive-through only with a patio option.
I mean,
We don't-
what's the smallest piece of land that you can fit on with that concept?
Well, it depends if there's, if it's in a center where there's cross access or driveways that exist. We've been looking at things that are, call it 16,000 square feet, but you can't, if it's that small, you have to have access points outside of your premise space. So it's really site specific. I would say you still probably need a minimum of 20,000 square feet if you're just using your own parcel and nothing else. And you know, we've added a second drive-through lane, kind of like what Chick-fil-A has done and McDonald's has done, where you have two different menu boards and you queue into one for the final pickup. So that's a way to address the demand for the drive-throughs. And you know, we are only a 2-day part concept. We only do lunch and dinner. So what we lost at lunchtime during COVID, I think we picked up at dinner time, because we're a great take-home meal replacement option for families and a very healthy option through a drive-through format.
Okay.
And I do want to put in a plug. Charlie represented, and his brand represents El Pollo Loco, and represented me at probably Wendy's and Carl's. Many brands, all my brands. So, you know, I've kind of stayed connected with Charlie.
Thank you. Bonnie, you're next. Thank you, Cheryl. Get up. There you go.
Really, I don't know if there's anybody you haven't represented. You know, he's represented me on most brands too. So for years now.
Starting with T-Mobile.
Right, for years now. But you know, the key is we are all franchised. So franchisees, you know, as everybody knows, can sometimes, you know, kind of do their own thing, but that is key for us. So some of them are more creative than others. So the difference now is Arby's is willing to get a lot more creative in what that footprint looks like. Like I said, it has to have a drive-through, but how many seats does it have to have? You know, what type of an end cap? How much land can we use? There's a lot of flexibility there. So that's probably the easiest brand for me to do deals for. And really, one of the keys that I reiterate is we are primarily roast beef. So we don't conflict with anybody else. So if you've already got your chicken, you've already got your burger, you know, I'm a very easy phone call or email to come in. And we will not overpay for real estate like that unnamed chicken brand or the unnamed burger brand. We can't overpay. We don't have the sales for that. So I'm not even going to try to compete with that. But Arby's is more lunch than dinner. So it also puts us in different areas. So there's other trade areas that we could take, other sections of a trade area we can take where we can get you know, a lot of those daytime workers. We love big industrial buildings, car dealers, you know, all of that. So we are in a little bit different, you know, segment sometimes than others. Sonic, again, grew faster than anybody else during COVID. So there's not a lot of flexibility needed there. It is the build out cost coming down is very helpful. So that's the most flexibility there. I'm not reiterating what Cheryl said, because I think every brand got out there and did more in the, you know, carry out, pick up. You know, I think operations got flexible everywhere. So I don't know that that makes us stand out, but having a drive in with Sonic has been huge. So you didn't have to pick it up and then figure out what parking lot, what are you going to stare at with the kids, whatever. So it made it very, very COVID friendly. And I told everybody from the get-go that just like 9/11, when, you know, it's been how many years now? They haven't caught one terrorist, but yet we still have to limit our liquids. I don't know that we're ever going to get back to the pre-COVID. You know, are we ever going to get more people in the dining room again? Are we ever going to give up, you know, all the drive-through? And we've had an awful lot of people that got sick of their brands in the first couple of weeks and then started branching out. So I think that they've gotten more to, hey, oh, I've got a Dunkin down the street. Oh, there's no Pollo Loco. I haven't been there forever. So each of the brands, I think, was helped by that. But Sonic with my drive-in and the drive-through, we're just not doing any dining rooms. So that does shrink the footprint of the building and gives us some more flexibility there. But with every franchisee having a different idea, can be a struggle for me and challenging, but also can be very good for landlords, developers, you know, brokers, everybody that's trying to get us in somewhere. So just both of my brands have a uniqueness to them that should help us get into those great centers.
Great, thank you. So Jason, you're next with everything going on in the coffee world, and there's so much flexibility. There's so many new coffee users, and you guys are just been the stalwart throughout the country, especially on the East Coast. What are you guys doing to differentiate yourself? How you getting your coffee to your customers? What did you do during all this to kind of make a difference and change the way you're doing business?
Well, you know, as Bonnie was saying, you know, I see this as a great, the COVID and pandemic was a great disruption, so to speak, the great disruption where patterns were changed, the Etch-a-Sketch was shaken, and I think people did go out and venture to see new, more convenient brands that they may not have experienced, and their patterns are changed now. You know, over a year being in LA and being in a, you know, basically a lockdown, you know, is our business instead of 6 to 9 now, is it like 9 to 11? You know, I mean, those are just abbreviated examples. We've been doing a lot of advertising, you know, obviously with influencers. We had great success with Charlie D'Amelio, who has 100 million plus followers on TikTok. I think that the Dunkin brand is the #1 followed brand right now on TikTok, just due to that kind of how that merged together and how that worked out, because that was an authentic relationship with someone who liked our product. You know, I think that's when the stars align, that's great. Going back to curbside, you know, obviously, you know, Sonic has done an incredible job with that in the past. That's what I grew up with, you know, in the Midwest. And how do we tap into that? Like we just, and Charlie's also our broker in several different areas. You know, he's kind of like the apex of a lot of things, but we just signed a site over in San Vicente on Olympic, where we are bringing in these new ideas of curbside. We're moving a restroom to make sure that we can do a counter for walk up. It's a non-drive-through. We have to be creative in areas where we can do non-drive-throughs, where we can't. I mean, our focus is on drive-through, but where we can't, how do we evolve? How do we shift? How do we work into an area that's just too cost prohibitive? What we're doing is we're putting the sensors out there in the parking lot to let people know when we arrive, and working off of the app. And I think a lot of it is going to be technology forward. So that's really one of the key things that we've been focusing on. Also construction cost. You know, I think everybody now has experienced like, okay, well now that's our next hurdle, since all these guys are building and housing and all that stuff. It shifts into shipping containers. Now, do those make sense? You know, I mean, before those were cost prohibitive, but now speed to market and the cost of value engineering those. You know, I know that there's a competitor out there right now that's building 200 shipping containers to they're just going to have them in stock. You know what I'm saying? For when they find sites, you know, and I think that's something that all of us will probably be looking at is how to do that and work with prefab where we can. You know, I think that it's just, with the brands, when you're talking about how have we stayed and what separates us from the other coffee users, I think it's longevity. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, a pour over coffee is awesome. You know, if you pay $14 for a Crown and Coke, you pay $14, you know, I'll do that once or twice with a pour over, right? You know, so, but it's value. It's what we bring to the table. We bring a good product at a great price. And I think everybody on this panel does that. And so that's what separates us from the other people that don't have that relevance yet. And what landlords are looking for are people who pay their rent and increase the value of their property. So I think when we all come to the table, it's like, who do you want to be aligned with when we have an uncertain future? And I think that, you know, we just want to get to certainty. So I think choosing somebody who has that longevity minimizes that risk. And so you take the risk versus price. You know, I mean, I can't pay $700,000 for a ground lease in Hollywood. I mean, I heard that the other day and I just thought I was watching Saturday Night Live or something. Everything's unreal. But I think it's the value, the traffic that we bring in, the certainty, and minimizing risk. And I think that's what everybody needs to break with. And we all need to do this together rather than just, you know, grinding each other. We need to figure out how we can get through this together.
Right. Well, like I said in the open, you know, your brands, everyone here has been around. I mean, you know, it's from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. You are the groundbreakers and the companies that have been around and are, you know, some of the most reliable companies in the country. So it's like you said, you're one of the most reliable groups of tenants out there. So I was going to go to Lawrence next and find out how you guys have been making it through, what kind of new stuff. We touched on it in regards to Baldwin Park and a couple of other deals that we've done together that have been non-drive-through and that I've talked about with ACRE. So tell me what you guys are doing, what's your you know, new innovations you guys are working on, and how you guys are dealing with new sites and new opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've heard some of the themes, and certainly KFC is also attempting to improve digital. That got to be about 10% of our mix during COVID, but hopefully, you know, some of those gains will sustain through the paradigm shift, the asset types. But for us, kind of holistically, it's about getting scrappy where we need to be, and that's how we can compete. So, you know, our average volumes are closer to 1.2 million, but we've seen some really good results with new units in particular, where the average is significantly higher than that. And we've seen results where we've had a 2 times of that, and in some cases even a 3 times. And going back to my initial kind of preamble statement, is this is all done with franchisees, and franchisees look at things differently. And some are willing to find an area of the market they want to be, but maybe not pay top dollar, but try to find something that's relevant and can drive some traffic. Other franchisees say, no, I want to be on Main and Main. So we just work with our individual franchisees to find, okay, what's the strategy that works best for you, and what are you willing to sign up for? Because we think about what we're doing holistically through the country. There are some markets where we can still find some really good deals. And it's amazing to me when I'm working with a broker in, let's say, San Antonio, and I find an A site and it's a lease of $60,000. And it's incredible. And then, you know, come out to Southern California and that's just not the case. But there are enough areas in the country where we're growing that we can still actually get pretty good deals. I think for us, the big theme though, is a lot of the franchisees want to buy their real estate. And so they look at it more of that long-term investment as opposed to let me get into a quick lease or potentially try to pay surge pricing. So especially the franchisees that are getting the top sites, they tend to look at it as, okay, a real estate investment. And that's really the play and how we go about it. But again, it's individual to the franchisee. But I think for Southern California, we're getting scrappy where we can. And then every once in a while, we get a great site. For example, we have one in Paris, California that it might not be an A site for all, but it's kind of an A site for us. And we're really excited about it. So it's a mix.
Okay. Kathy, it's to you.
Well, let's see. I sort of answered the question about how we've done our buildings, got creative with our buildings, but we did a few things. I mean, initially, certainly helped our franchisees. We're the ones that were still paying the rent and just asking for a little deferment because we didn't know what was going to happen when we all hit that March date and the shutdowns. And so we're always, we're about 95% franchised throughout the company, and we're always there to do anything and everything we can to help support them. A few of the things that we've done, one thing that we jumped on was we created a building conversion task force. And it was kind of a group of some of us real estate directors, and it was a combination of, we're certainly no strangers to conversions, and we love conversions, even though sometimes, you almost tear down the whole building, but, it certainly saves time and money for sure to be able to do a conversion. We anticipated that there might be more conversions coming out of COVID, but now that everybody wants a drive-through and people actually were doing well, that wasn't necessarily the case. But what we did is we created a team that would just make it easier for our franchisees. I've seen our design department step up, and with a few of the ones that we had as an opportunity, I mean, we jumped on a call. They had renderings and a floor plan within a week without having plans. I mean, they just were like, let's get on Google Earth, let's see what we can do, let's turn it around. So kind of speed to be able to react to these conversions, which is a big thing. And it really, really has helped. We have created, and with that, we're kind of creating a library deck of, so now it's like every Carl's Jr., we've done many different types, but we're creating a deck. So when somebody comes to us with, maybe it's a Carl's or a Jack, or even anything, Banks to a Payless shoe store, which one of our franchisees converted in El Centro, which looks beautiful. So there for the franchisees for that. And another big thing I think that we did with the franchisees, we've had development incentive programs before. And I think we kicked that off maybe in about 2017. And those programs actually were accountable for about 50% of the deals that were built were groups that were in our, what we call Groundbreaker. Well, we kind of dusted that program off and kind of reintroduced it. And so there's many incentives if you commit to building X amount. So that's kind of really brought everybody back to the table too. There's much more enthusiasm right now for growth. There's a lot of confidence in it. There's been some big openings, and we're on the right track. So those are kind of a few of the other things over and above the creativity with the types of sites. And I think I did mention, we've got definitely a smaller prototype. We are looking at drive-through onlys. We are looking at container, opportunities. We're doing that internationally now. So it's exciting because it's been a time that we've all kind of sat back and reflected and said, okay, this could, it could have been really, really, really bad, or, dig in and kind of pivot, which is the word that I think between pivot and you're on mute were the two biggest words or phrases that you heard during COVID. So it's been very interesting. I think we've all learned a lot, and I think we're, again, blessed to be in the position that we're in to be able to have been able to operate.
Right. So I've got a question for the general panel, and anybody can jump in. So you all have, all these great new innovations that COVID kind of have forced you into, or may have started before COVID started, in regards to your delivery systems. Cheryl was saying that there's a couple of parking spaces that you dedicated to pick up. What systems or what companies do you guys use? What companies are helping you through this COVID part and getting delivery, getting your food, not necessarily being delivered by the drive-through, but being taken out of the dining room and delivered to someone in a parking lot? Are you guys all doing that? Cheryl, I think you alluded to that, but is there a company that you use?
Yeah, we teamed up obviously with Uber Eats and all of those deliveries, but we really partnered with Postmates. And basically that partnership with Postmates allowed free delivery, and our marketing tagline was for as long as it's necessary or for as long as it takes. So in other words, sometimes a lot of the delivery options cost money, a lot of money, but the fact that we had partnered with Postmates that would provided the product to be delivered at no charge was, you know, I thought something innovative and helped us through.
Anybody else using anything, any other types of companies that have helped you through this?
Curbit, you know, in the Valley, you know, Scott Selig's group.
Scott Siegel?
Siegel, excuse me. Sorry, Scott, if you're on here, I'm going to get a demerit for that. You know, I think there's some guys that are coming out of the gate, some new innovative companies, you know, like Scott's, but we're working with the others too to make it, you know, a seamless deal. But we're going back to the walk-up counters and the, you know, the monitors, the parking monitors, and making sure that we have dedicated parking for that option that is that plan B for a drive-through. So that's our focus on that.
Anybody else using anybody different? Postmates, Curbit? Anybody else doing anything? Lawrence or no?
Well, DoorDash has been big.
DoorDash.
Yeah, and of course with Yum Brands, we had not totally, it was kind of exclusive though with Grubhub for a while, and then so we were a little bit limited for a time, and then had signed on with Uber Eats, and then eventually when we were able to get on with DoorDash, that was a bit of a game changer and really taking our digital to another level. The one thing just for us sometimes is when we build these new restaurants, availability of drivers and getting signed up for that. So the Huntington Beach store that we opened up, we didn't have drivers right out of the gate, and that was a non-drive-through location. So just trying to make sure that's in place in advance is really important. But some franchisees want to wait too when they open new units, because they're dealing with so much on day one of just trying to operate a store, that having now delivery layer on top of it can just make things a little bit more cumbersome when you're opening your restaurant.
So my next question has to do with franchisees and your job specifically. You're all real estate managers for your brands, and you have a certain amount of stores that the brand wants you to open every year. How much leeway do you give your franchisees as far as directing them into new locations and giving them incentives? What are your brands doing, and what do you, in your interaction with your franchisees, how are you inspiring them to go out and open up new stores? And I'll start with Bonnie first. So
Love that word, inspiring them. Where'd you get that from, Charlie?
I don't know.
No, we are, you know, obviously we are their ultimate supporters. So we are connecting with everybody out there. Any dirt we can dig up, we're driving around, we're making phone calls, we're doing all that, you know, connecting kind of stuff. And with that support, they obviously make a lot more progress, because they're also pounding the pavement. They have different choices of brokers. They have other landlords they're talking to. Sometimes they know people who know people. I mean, it's kind of, when you're with a brand that's all franchise, it's very interesting, because we don't have just one entity. We have many entities with both Sonic and Arby's. So they're all making connections and, you know, sending sites to me as well. So it's really just getting the word out as much as we can that we're here and we're growing, because with sort of the COVID shutdown, everybody's, well, who's doing deals? You're doing deals? Really? You are? And I said, well, yeah, we did spend 7 weeks on a rent reduction program, I think like everybody else did, right? So as a company asset, we were put on a project to keep ourselves and everybody else employed. But after that, it's been great. And then I just keep explaining to the community that we don't overpay. And if they want to ask me questions about AUV and things like that, then that's where we get into it. You know, you have to take out the overpayers, and then the rest of us are all on kind of a level playing field. And then it just depends on our strategy, how close another store is. People often fail to look and see where the closest Wendy's, Arby's, you know, Chick-fil-A, where is the closest one before you start building. But
I can tell you, I've got a whole map of.
Right, I know you're really good at that, but a lot of times they're not, and they get mad at me for not, like, but you're 1.5 miles away. Why would you even send it to me? I can look at a map on my phone and type in that brand and tell you where the closest brand is. So that's kind of a simple process, but we help filter all of that out for the franchisees as well.
Right. Kathy, I'm going to go to you on this. You've got a lot of very aggressive, large franchisees out there in the market. What do you do to help them in their site selection, or what are you looking for from them to get to you to kind of make a deal happen?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you were on the broker training, no. So I kind of mentioned a few of the projects. Yes, so I'll explain that comment. Talking about, anything and everything we can to help assist our franchisees. And we do have multiple franchisees, and a few of our franchisees here in Southern California are so big, they have their own in-house real estate directors or vice presidents. And each of those groups have their own brokerage team. So in areas like Southern California, it's kind of challenging. We are able to do and are willing to do many, many deals, but it's hard to kind of manage it in relation to impact and proximity, et cetera. So I mentioned the incentive program, and, good sales kind of cures all ails, right? So everybody is super excited to be growing right now. Along, we've got a great senior leadership team that has an amazing menu, and breakfast has helped substantially. So sales are up, sales are good, and there's a really, really bright future. So that helps as well. We've done a few other things. I mentioned the building conversion task force that's helped quite a few people. They were blown away at how fast we could turn around plans and our assistance for them. We took it to just kind of another slightly different level, that we're working with some of our brokerage teams to do kind of a broker training to help them make sure that they're aware of everything that we can do. And Charlie's team was invited to the first broker training session. Charlie.
I'm technologically challenged, I'm sorry.
Now I know why you did a practice session for this, but everything from, we have a really detailed, we work with ArcGIS, and we have a really detailed priority trade area system that we have hundreds of thousands of trade areas that we have targeted on our system. And each real estate director goes in there and they vet it, and we rank it, and you can tell how close we are to the next unit. You can tell how close we are to the next, what we call a real estate letter or site approved site. That's where we're kind of, registering sites. It's coupled with our demographics and with competitive sales, et cetera. So that's there at their disposal at any time. And I'm flying off those reports constantly. It helps quite a bit. And part of the problem we come up with too is, we've got, when there are proximity issues, because there's so much density, why can't we go under 2 miles, or why can't we go, so we have our newer system that we use for impact studies is Tango, which uses Uber media data to assess, right? Jason's got the thumbs up. It's really great information. I don't know why people don't use it too, just on knowing where your customer is from your existing restaurant. So as far as, so many things that we have for the franchisees, and also just communicating that, they know that it's there. We've done Zoom and or our first face-to-face development session with franchisees. So we go through their entire portfolio, their development agreements, leases that are expiring, how do we help them remodel? So it's a kind of a combination of efforts that we, provide the whole package.
Okay. Thank you. Lawrence, hey, I know that you've got your growth over the last couple of years has been tremendous. I know that from personal experience that KFC has been doing quite a few deals. Your franchisees are how do you choose which franchisee gets a territory? What are your parameters for saying I want this franchisee to open up 3 stores, this one to do this one? How do you go through your process of saying a site goes to a particular franchisee?
Yeah, so we don't have territories. What franchisees have are rights in our franchise agreement. So it's always easiest if somebody is developing when they're the next closest location or within their footprint. However, if a franchisee wants to build in an area where they're not the nearest, but let's say the nearest is not looking to build, they can still attempt to register a site. We just have a process that they go through, and sometimes it works out and the requesting franchisee is able to build, and then other times the nearest franchisee either requests an impact study or potentially decides to look at the market themselves and decide to build it instead. So it's a little bit of a complex process. It gives us some flexibility to at least say that nobody has a set territory, but what we try to do is align with the franchisee on their growth plans, especially the ones that are on development agreements. And going back to your earlier question, what are we doing to motivate franchisees? Is our DAs are pretty compelling, where we're able to definitely get them some really good rebates, in addition to our national rebate for just any growth. But then we're able to go above and beyond that when it comes to somebody actually committing to development. I think the biggest thing for us, though, is just trying to ensure that we have the right franchisees for the job. And we were a brand that had over 500 franchisees just a few years back, and now we've done a lot of consolidation. We've had new recruitment, and Charlie, as you know, we have RBD New Zealand coming in and buying our largest Southern California franchisee. So it just breathes new life into the market when we know we're dealing with a partner that's committed to grow, and we look at it along the lens of capability, commitment, and capital. But then once we know, okay, somebody's on board with growth, we get them committed to growth, then it's let's look at the geography and let's have a plan so something is at least thought through. And we can certainly be opportunistic and look at different sites, but generally we have a pretty good game plan of where we want to look, and we figure that out with franchisees in advance.
Right. Thank you. So Cheryl, how are you dealing with your franchisees? How are you dealing with your corporate deals? What is your strategy when it comes to expansion and placing your stores in the right locations with the right people?
So with regards to the franchisee, very similar to Wendy's, our franchisees are multi-unit operators. So they are very sophisticated, and several of them have a real estate person. And if they don't have a dedicated in-house person, they have a very sophisticated broker that represents them. We typically provide kind of in new markets and new franchisees with a target map that we've vetted. And then for the balance, those that are existing, we had target maps done previously for all of the, call it California, Arizona, Texas territories, because all of those were done for as company when we rolled out. And then as we franchised some of those markets, we kind of just retained those. And so when they come into real estate committee, we basically say this is, very close to and we tiered the targets: green, yellow, red. Green is a now deal, yellow is a look at it, could be a now deal, and red is wait till the market builds. So it would be like a third tier of priority. And we look at our own real estate deals that way as well. But we are, as I mentioned earlier, we're very well penetrated in, call it Southern California. So a lot of those deals are infill sites.
Right.
And, franchisees have depending on when they sign their franchise agreement, have a territory that or a protection ring. And we try to, abide by that ring. And if we think it's close, we do impact studies and determine what sales impact there might be, and then proceed or not proceed based on the results of the study.
What is your typical impact study saying that you can? Is it, is it 10%, 15%? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think it's lower than that. I would probably say, because we treat it like we treat ourselves. So it really just, if the area is a growth area, or if it's really just going to split the pie of what already exists, there's a lot of variables that go into it. But I'd say single digits would be something, maybe call it 8% or less.
Okay. Yeah, I get a lot of, dealing with drive-thrus on a daily basis. I get a lot of sites that are pretty close to another one, and I'll call one of you guys, and you'll give me those numbers, and then I've got to explain that to the landlords or the ownerships. And so it's always nice to understand a little bit of how your stores impact each other, and how you guys were approving those stores. So that's always good information for me to
And
have, so I can explain it.
And it is easier to hit yourself than someone else. So it depending on if we're impacting ourselves, it's we know that it's just going to hit us. But if we're impacting a franchisee, we have to be very sensitive to that.
Right. So Jason, thank you, Cheryl. Jason, I know you've got several large franchisees that have very large territories, and I know that you've got some marketing people within your company that really do a great job of identifying corners. And so, how do you kind of steer your franchisees into locations? How do you say this is a great site, this is not a great site? What is your involvement with your franchisees and your expansion?
Well, I mean, just to kind of cover this as quickly as possible, with what we did when we came into California, and when we go into a new market, we have a cross-functional team that includes operations, our construction, our market planner, who's Andy for this area, who you've been on the phone with quite a bit. Ivan Abreu, who's also a Dunkin DM, and Lori. Ivan also does Baskin, when we do the combos and stuff like that, which are important for us. That gets into proximity with existing, Baskin Robbins. So, that's where these impact studies come in quite a bit. But going back to how we do this, we work very closely with our brokers. Our brokers are our team, and with the franchisees. My job is to help the franchisee make money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what we wake up to do every day, is to figure out how do these guys expand, and how do they have the opportunity to, expand their system. So we've gone in and figured out, kind of like what Cheryl's saying, and with Tango, where are the targeted areas for, phase 1, phase 2. We also get down like first cup, second cup, that gets a little crazy. But so we go in, and we do have a plan and a strategy that can evolve, that's breathing, so to speak, of where we believe that minimizes the most risk and is on the way to work kind of traffic flow for people to get their goods on the way wherever they're going to in the morning on that AM, cycle. Now, I think that we've had to go back and look at this, and this is what we've done over the last year, is to see where that's recalibrated. You know what I'm saying? Have those traffic patterns changed? I think more so of downtown has changed compared to Westwood, compared to El Segundo. I mean, you have different sectors of business. You have government, you have private, you have institutional, with colleges and stuff like that. So that has been recalibrated. But going back to that, what we did with this market planning is it's a cross-functional process. You know what I'm saying? So we're all on board on this. This is signed off, and when the franchisee comes on board, they're signing a contract of how many they're going to build out over a certain period of time. And so to us, it's accountability. Words and dates mean something. So how do we get to that end all? Is there incentives that need to be in place? Is there something that works out that's a great balance for us to increase store count in great areas? Maybe it might be a little bit more expensive than what they're working with. How can we go back and work with something that's in the system already to balance that out, to help them move forward in, securing more sites, that makes sense, not to overdo it, because operations needs to come in. And the franchisees that we go after, there were, I think, 2,000 people that signed up to try and be franchisees when we came to California 8 years ago. All these guys had the money. There was a lot of money out there, but it's all about operations. Our job is really about 6 months out of the process, but we've got to hand over or cross the ball over to the operations people to help them run with the franchisees for 20 years. So, and when you're with a franchise-based company, there's no room for mistake. We can't absorb bad real estate deals, like some of our corporate competitors can, or they can pay crazy rents and absorb that in. each one of our deals has to stand alone. And so we have to minimize risk. And the science that we put together is like, it's geeky cool. I mean, that's the only way I can and I think you've been exposed to that recently. And it's really to come out and make the best decision possible. So that's, I hope that answered your question.
You did. So I'm going to ask you a real quick question. You can choose to answer it or not. And then we're going to go to the audience and have them ask some questions, and I'll kind of feed those to you. So we're a year after, actually to the day, March 13th was when kind of COVID really started to take foot, and everything started to shut down. So question for you. I'll start with Jason, and then we'll kind of go around the horn here. Did your sales finish a year later? Did your sales finish higher, lower, or about the same? Go ahead, Jason.
Wow.
I know, loaded question.
I'd like to circle back on that with you. I think in some areas, we got hit really hard in some urban areas, and we're still coming out in positive notes. So I would say it's been overall, I'm impressed by how the humanity of the individuals within our group from the top to down have come together and aligned and collaborated with our franchisees to do our very best to overcome this disruption. And with that said, I think that we've come through this in a positive light, so to speak. And we still have a ton of work to do. And I think everybody's kind of checked their ego at the door, and we're like, how do we overcome this? And there's been political, there's been social unrest, there's been the pandemic. So it's really like, how do we go arm in arm to get through this? So there we go.
Bonnie, I'm going to stay with the Inspire brands. How about you guys for your two concepts?
I think Jason's a great politician. That was good.
Up, down, or about the same?
We are the same company. So yeah. So, and again, our leadership has been phenomenal in the processing of this. I work with just the absolute best people, and it has been supporting the companies, supporting franchisees. I mean, it's been fantastic. But you asked about top line sales, and Sonic blew everybody away. So it's hard to complain when I'm on the Sonic brand, because they have, everybody took a hit last year. March, April, May, we were all scared that we weren't going to have jobs, that, all the restaurant employees were going to be let go. We were going to have to close stores, which we did. And we spent 7 weeks doing nothing but 16 plus hours a day of, working with landlords, trying to get rents restructured and any kind of forgiveness we could, because we also support brands that are hit really hard, like Buffalo Wild Wings and Jimmy John's. We're all one team. So we've got to support everybody. But Sonic was amazing. So those were really fun Zoom calls to be on, because things were actually positive after, that first kind of miserable few weeks. And Arby's actually up too, and we weren't sure that we were going to predict that. But as the year went forward with all the things that we did for cost cutting, franchise support, etc., we came out on top. So we've been very happy and humbled, but very happy.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. How about you?
We finished 2020 about the same. Some stores up, some stores down, but I think the real game changer was how much it was to operate in the restaurants, given all the governmental, the masks, the gloves, the plexi, all of that. So even though sales finished the year about even with 2019 to 20, there was so much more spent in, delivering the brand to guests.
The PPE and all that.
Yeah, all of it.
Okay. Lawrence, how about yourself? How'd KFC do this year?
Yeah, KFC saw significant increases in both top line and bottom line. And part of it was the fact that we have meals that can serve larger occasions, so buckets. So we saw a big transfer from an individual meal, which is going to cost you $5-6, to a $20 fill up and then a $30 fill up. And it just became blocking and tackling for us, to where it's easy to do fried chicken in a bucket. it's more difficult to do a lot of the LTOs and that kind of thing. So when you're just doing chicken and sides and you can crank through the drive-through, we saw increases in speed in drive-through and in larger meal occasions. So for that reason, we saw some really good increases. And then on the bottom line piece, you know, with labor and dining room shut, then you're able to focus on, you know, the drive-through layer and not having to support necessarily the dining room or people ordering from counters. So labor, we saw some definite optimization on that piece. So it worked out both ways for us.
Okay. And Kathy, we'll finish with you. I know that you said earlier when we started that you added breakfast right at the beginning of COVID. How did that help your sales overall, and where did you end this year?
Well, as a system, we ended up positive, which was a great thing. We have an amazing senior leadership team, and they were there every step of the way, over communicating with big calls with corporate, with the entire franchise family. And I mean, talk about over communication. It's like another call, but I think everybody kind of was in a place where they needed that. They needed the support and the direction. So thankfully, sales, we ended up very strong. And I think breakfast was a big part of that. So we were to be able to add that as, you know, becoming 7% part of the day part. And on top of that, I think, you know, we were already poised with you know, we had an agreement with DoorDash, but then we expanded to all the other platforms, and we had the mobile app already teed up and ready to kick off. So all of that, you know, a lot of these initiatives had been there and they were kind of in the works, but it accelerated many of these things. So that helped tremendously. So it was a good year. Did not expect it to be, but ended up that way.
Well, like I said at the open, you know, these brands have been the most reliable over all these years, and I really appreciate you guys jumping on this call. I do have one or two. I've got another 5 minutes, and these can be kind of yes and no questions if you like. One of the questions here I got was, are any of you planning on taking your existing locations and building in walk-up windows? I don't know if that's something you guys have looked to do, and you just say yes or no.
Absolutely. We're trying to figure out, kind of like what Kathy was saying. You know, we had a team that went in with our construction group to figure out how to get drive-throughs on the non-drive-throughs, how to get walk-up counters and curbside. We're doing everything we can to figure out how to adjust and to move forward with technology and anything we can do to do that.
Okay. Anybody else looking to change existing drive-throughs to put in a walk-up window? Or
Charlie, El Pollo Loco, in that new prototype that is the drive-through patio only, it does have a walk-up window feature.
Okay.
We haven't incorporated it into any of the existing restaurants. I don't think they're set up, but that one drive-through only with the patio has a walk-up window.
That'd be a ditto for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I love the new innovations. Sonic's already walk up or drive up. All right. Well, I think that I really appreciate you all being on. I hope everybody on that joined us today learned something about your concepts and how you guys have fared through the year. Again, I appreciate it. You're all friends, and I appreciate working with all of you. With that, I'll sign off. And if Robin, if you have anything you want to add, or if anybody else, Doreen, if you want to add something, please do. But I want to thank you guys for joining us, and I'll see you and talk to you shortly. Again, all of you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Charlie.
Charlie, we want to
Charlie.
thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you and the panelists. Thank you so much for being here today. This was very informative. I think we all got a lot of information. I did see a couple other questions pop up. If you have any additional questions, we will be sending an email out with contact information. And I'm sure Charlie would be more than happy to answer those questions as well.
Yeah.
We do have an ACRE YouTube channel, so we will be posting this on YouTube if you'd like to go back and revisit some of the things that were said. And just want to remind everyone again that we would love for you to join us. We are hoping to get back to in-person events soon. We really do have it on our radar. We're actually having a board meeting this afternoon, and we're talking about some future events for the future in person. So please be prepared for that. But we'd love to see you at our Inland Empire event, and come network. You know what? We're going to do this just in a couple of weeks. Everybody come in and chat to each other. We'd love to be able to speak with you. Is there anything anybody else wants to add before we sign off?
If you do need any of the contact information for anybody here, you can email me or text me. My number is 818-730-7649. 818-730-7649. And I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding the concepts here, or give out some information on any of the panelists, which I think we've already sent out the information on them a couple times, but I'd be glad to help you out with it. Or if you have any other specific questions. Again, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you all soon. Look forward to seeing you in person.